Okay, I need to talk about birth plans, and I need to do it carefully because I know this is going to land differently for different people. Some of you guys are going to nod along and be like, yes, Trish, and some of you are going to feel a little defensive, and both of those reactions are completely fair, but stay with me. Here is what I have seen. In 16 years of being at the bedside for thousands of births, the birth plan, as most people create it, is not helping you the way you think it is. In some cases, not at all. But some, it is actually setting you up for disappointment or frustration or a feeling of failure that you don't deserve and you didn't earn. So today, I want to introduce you to something I teach all of my students, which is the concept of a birth map. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand exactly why that distinction matters and what it changes about the whole experience. Hi, I am Trish, your online birth bestie. I was a 16-year high-risk labor nurse, and this is the Birth Experience podcast, and I am so fired up about today's topic. So let's go. So let's start with the birth plan, because I want to give it a fair shake before I tell you why I think we need to retire the term completely. Why do people make birth plans in the first place? The answer is because they want to feel in control of an experience that feels inherently out of control. And that instinct is completely right. You should have a say in what happens to your body. You should know your options. You should be able to communicate your preferences to your care team. That is not just a nice little idea. That is your right as a patient. But the problem is not the desire to have your preferences documented. The problem is the word plan itself and the mindset that comes with it. Here's the most common version of a birth plan that I have seen. It's a 1 to 2 page document, sometimes longer, that lists every single thing the person does and does not want. No IV unless medically necessary, no episiotomy, no continuous fetal monitoring, dim the lights, don't offer pain medication, allow free movement, delayed cord clamping, skin to skin immediately, on and on and on. Now, none of these individual preferences are wrong. In fact, they're amazing. But here's what happens when that document walks into a labor and delivery unit. The nurse gets it, she reads through it, and if it's very long, very prescriptive, very much written in a tone of distress towards the medical team, and a lot of them are, because they're written by people who are scared and trying to protect themselves, something shifts. Not because the nurse is a bad person, because it's a document without any relationship behind it. And it reads like a little list of rules from someone who has already decided not to trust her. Now, I'm talking about human emotions, okay? But it can create distance right from the start and at that exact moment when you need to collaborate with one another. Then, and this is the part that breaks my heart, something changes during labor, because something always changes. Trust me on this. Maybe the baby's heart rate does something that needs monitoring. Maybe your labor stalls and there's a decision that needs to be made. Maybe the pain is different than expected. And now there's a gap between what the plan said and what's actually happening. And the person in the bed feels like they're letting themselves down, or they failed, or they've lost control, and they're processing that emotional weight on top of everything else that labor is asking of them. That is the birth plan trap. Now, if you guys follow me on Instagram or anyone else, you know that I am all for a birth map. When something is called a plan, your brain treats it like a contract, like I've made a shaking deal, right? And labor does not do contracts. So let me teach you what I teach instead and why I think it changes everything. So once you think about going on a vacation, you have a destination, you're super excited about it, you're looking forward to it, you've searched Airbnb, you know what you want to do, you know what you want the trip to feel like, you have a route in mind, but then you leave for the vacation and there's a roadblock. There's a road is closed, right? The road you're planning to take is closed. Do you pull over and be like, darn it, and you give up? Do you sit in the car and feel like a failure because your route didn't work out the way you drew it up? No, you adjust. You find another way to get to the same destination. The destination doesn't change because the route did. I want that to land. This is what a birth map is. It's not a rigid set of instruction. It's a map with a destination that you've committed to and multiple routes that can get you there. When something changes, you use the information you have. You don't abandon the trip. You adapt. You make a different turn and you keep moving towards your destination. Your destination is a safe birth and a healthy baby. And ideally, an experience where you felt informed, respected, and supported the entire trip, right? The entire way through. That destination does not change, but the route might. And when you're holding a map instead of a plan, a detour feels like a detour, not a disaster. So what does a birth map actually look like in practice? The first thing is it includes your destination, which is just being clear about the kind of birth experience you're working toward at the big picture level. Are you hoping for an unmedicated birth, a calm, low intervention birth? Are you open to whatever your body needs? Getting clear on your destination helps you and your care team understand what you're working towards without being rigid about every single step. I always tell my students, we can refuse anything, but why? We can accept anything, but why? I always want you to have knowledge. That's what your birth map needs to be rooted in, is your knowledge. The second thing is your preferred route. Your top 3 to 5 priorities that genuinely matter to you the most. I want those to start at the top. The things that if nothing else happened the way you wanted, you would still need these. Maybe that's delayed cord clamping. Maybe that's skin to skin immediately after birth. Maybe that's having your partner announce the sex of the baby. Whatever it is, identify them and communicate them clearly. These are not demands. They are the roads you most want to take. The third thing, and this is what separates a birth map from a birth plan, is that it acknowledges alternate routes. If a particular road is closed, what is your next best path? If continuous monitoring becomes necessary, what else can you do to still feel comfortable and mobile? Maybe it's being attached to the monitor, but walking around next to the bed, sitting on a birth ball, being on something next to the bed, not in the bed. If your labor stalls and Pitocin comes up in conversation, what questions do you want to ask before making that decision? When you've thought through the alternate routes in advance, nothing catches you off guard. You already seen it on your map. The fourth thing is a good birth map requires education, real education, because a map is only useful if you understand the territory. And when you know why continuous fetal monitoring is being recommended, you can have a real conversation, right? When you understand what Pitocin does and why it might be suggested, you can ask the right questions and make an informed decision. I hope you're tracking with me here. Yes, you're tracking, right? When you've done the preparation, you're not a passenger in your birth. You are driving it. You're an active participant who can navigate the entire time. So here's something I want to be really clear about. Switching from a birth plan to a birth map is not the same as saying, just trust your doctor and do what you're told. That is not my message, nor will it ever be. I am a huge advocate for informed consent, for asking questions, for speaking up, for knowing your rights as a patient. Again, you can refuse whatever you want, and I support you, but you need to know why. I spent 16 years watching women being rushed through decisions they didn't fully understand, and it bothered me deeply, so deeply that I created Labor Nurse Mama, and you deserve better than that. What a birth map does is it gives you real navigational power instead of the false security of a document that labor might not follow. One keeps you flexible and informed, the other can leave you feeling like you failed the moment the route changes. And that feeling is the last thing you need when you're in the middle of bringing your precious baby into the world. So here's what I want you to walk away and actually do. Have real conversations with your provider now, before labor starts, about their philosophies, their practices, and your values. Build your birth map around a destination and a set of priorities, not an exhaustive list of do's and don'ts. I want you to think through your alternate routes so that when something changes, you have already considered it and you're ready to navigate it. Make sure your support person knows your map so they can advocate for you when you can't advocate for yourself. And invest in real birth education so you understand the territory you're moving through. Your birth might not take the exact route you hoped for. That is what I want for you. But if it doesn't, and sometimes it doesn't, I want you to be someone who can keep your eyes on the destination the whole time, who can understand the turns, and who arrives knowing you navigated that journey the best that you possibly could. And that, to me, is a very successful birth. That is what we're working towards. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, if it made sense for you, make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review. If you're ready to be educated and supported, come join me in the birth classes or in Calm Mama Society, my mama membership, where you get access to me. I absolutely adore you, and I'm so grateful that you choose me to help educate you for your birth. You are so powerful. You're a birth queen, and I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.